All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. Um, Hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm Guy Cecelski. I'm a therapist with Avance Care. Um, this feels a little strange. I guess it's my first webinar, kind of presenting to people that I can't see, which feels strange, but I hope you're with me and I'm excited for this opportunity. Hope you get something out of it. A little bit about myself to start. Um, as I said, I'm a therapist, a licensed clinical social worker with Avance Care. I specialize in working with people struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, including complex PTSD, substance use, and ADHD. I'm also from Durham, grew up in Durham. I went to UNC Chapel Hill for undergrad and grad school. Went to DC for a little bit and then moved back to Durham. But love this area very much and serving the people of the Triangle. Uh, so we will get into it. I guess my last point there was I was a self-care enthusiast, which is part of my job and teaching people how to take care of themselves, but it's also something that's very important to me as a therapist, as somebody that gives a lot to other people, and my job is sort of supporting, taking care of other people. Um, I know that I have to take care of myself in order to be able to do that effectively. And so that's basically what this presentation is about today. I'll also give the disclaimer that somebody else was slated to do this presentation. I took over within the last 48 hours. So I'm excited with what I created, but I've not practiced as much as I like if I'm rambling a little bit or need moments to collect my thoughts. I hope you give me a little bit of grace. Um, but yeah, the sort of title of this presentation, putting your oxygen mask on first, the importance of taking care of yourself, is in this idea that sometimes we need to take care of ourselves before we take care of other people. There are times where it's detrimental to not take care of ourselves, both for ourselves and for the people that we care about. And so I'm going to be approaching this kind of focusing on an idea of chronic stress um, and excuse me a second. Chronic stress and basically the fatigue that we experience from uh, giving too much of ourselves or uh, giving more to other people than we are receiving ourselves. And this can look a lot of different ways. Can be called burnout, can be called caregiving fatigue, can be called depression, can be called just normal parenting. There's a lot of different relationships where we tend to give more than we're getting back. And that can be a relationship with a kid, with an older person in our life, with work. Sorry about that. I have an automatic light in my office that likes to turn off and I have to wave my hand. So this presentation is for those of you that may have a tendency to give a little bit too much of yourself, may have a tendency to find yourself in relationships where you feel like you're giving more than you're receiving, or it's for people that maybe know somebody who is like that, or maybe has somebody like that in your life. Um, and it's a way to maybe learn a little bit more about them and how maybe you could support them. Hmm. Um, so first off, giving can be bad. Um, that's just kind of fun for me to say. I think uh, the messaging in most of society, most of the world, is that giving is always a good thing. You can never give too much. Um, if you're giving, that's good, and if you're, you know, kind of saving something for yourself, that's selfish, that's bad. So today I'll talk about sort of how giving can be bad. Also, generally, I'm going to be talking a lot about sort of mental health awareness. How do we know when we're giving in a unhealthy way? What are the signs in our mental health and our physical health that show that? Also going to kind of talk about how we get to that position. And this is something that, I explore a lot with my clients and talk a lot about in therapy. But, there are certain kind of mental tricks that our mind plays on us, or that other people kind of convince us of, that lead us to believe that we're, we shouldn't keep something for ourselves, or we have to give to other people more than we receive, or we keep for ourselves. So my hope is maybe talk about some ways that kind of understand how you got yourself in that position. What are maybe some of the ways of your thinking, or ways that you've learned from other people that have led to sort of these imbalanced relationships. And then also, yeah, how can you learn to recognize your needs and really recognize them as needs, not just a side thought. And then how do we begin to prioritize them, and recognize them as equal to other people's. Do have a lot to get through today. I won't have a whole lot of time for kind of active participation and questions. Feel free to put things in chat as I'm talking. We will have a time for questions at the end, so anything that you put in chat, Lindsay, who's supporting me in this, will kind of collect and give me some of y'all's questions at the end. The other thing I would suggest is, just as you're going through, this can be sort of a practice in self-reflection, and learning about yourself as I'm talking about the things that people experience, the ways that people think, the messages that people hear from other people, the messages that they tell themselves. You may find you relate to some of those. You might find that you know kind of learn something about yourself in this. And so if it's helpful to take notes, or sort of, yeah, think about how this applies to your own personal life or the people around you, I think there could be value in that. All right, I'm going to say it one more time. Giving can be bad. So how can it be bad? One, when we're talking about sort of chronic stress or giving, it often happens when we're consistently giving more than we are receiving, and that could either be receiving back from kind of the person that we're giving to. Sometimes that person might not be able to give back in the same way, so it also might just be that we're not receiving enough from the other supports and people in our life. What that leads to is a really significant effect on our body, on our sort of mental state and our emotional state, because it takes resources to give. It takes, when we're experiencing stress, when we're doing something for somebody else, or we're giving a part of ourselves, whether that is our time, our money, our energy, our attention, that is taking something from us. And so our body will start to tell us when we're empty, basically. In general, there's going to be a couple, early signs, I guess. When we are under stress, our body is going to be in an escalated state. When we sense there's a problem, when we sense there's something to take care of, um, then our mind works harder. Our thoughts tend to race a little bit more. We're going to have difficulty relaxing. Our brain doesn't want us to relax. It wants us to work. It wants us to solve a problem. It wants us to take care of something. And our body is not going to allow itself to relax either. We're going to have muscle tension. We're going to have higher blood pressure. We're going to feel restless, right? So both these things are our body and our mind saying there's something we need to do. There's something we need to take care of. There's somebody we need to take care of. So let's stay on alert. Let's be in a state where we can focus on this more, and we're not going to be tired, and we're not going to get distracted, and we're gonna focus in and help this person solve this problem, deal with this source of stress. The problem is when we stay in that state consistently, if you're experiencing stress every day or most days, it's not sustainable, and it's not meant to be. Our stress response is meant to be, we sense a problem, there's a threat, there's a problem in our lives or somebody else's. We feel stress. The stress tells us to deal with the problem, and it helps us to deal with the problem, and then we're able to relax again. What happens when we're in sort of constant caregiving positions is that problem is never going away. We're always giving to somebody we care about, or we're giving to work, which you might or might not care about. But you're never really getting this ability to relax if you're always kind of feeling like you have to give more, and there's never enough. It's every day you have to give. Every moment you have to think about it. And so your body's never relaxed, and your mind is never relaxed, and there's never an end in sight. So then we start seeing some of these other symptoms. We see fatigue both in the body and in the mind. The body's using a lot of energy in this stress state, and it starts being tired all the time. The mind's using a lot of energy, and it starts being tired all the time. So that's a great combination off the back, where you have a body and a brain that says you can't be tired, and you can't sleep, and you can't relax, and it's constantly tired, and it's constantly exhausted, and it never has enough energy. It's a very unhealthy state to be in. If we continue in that state, then we start to see some of these other changes. We start to see changes in sleep, changes in appetite, and libido. Our immune system weakened, with headaches, digestive issues, and that is, our body is starting to shut down. Basically, our body is starting to say, "Okay, we're putting so much energy into this, so much stress into this, that we can't put energy into other things. We don't have a desire to eat. We don't have a desire to have sex. We don't have a desire to sleep. Don't have we can't put energy into our immune system, into taking care of our body. We can't put energy into our digestive system. So our body starts breaking down, basically, and causing problems in a lot of different areas. We also you have constant high blood pressure and muscle tension. You start dealing with cardiac issues or respiratory issues. There's a lot of physical issues that come with that. Sometimes we do see increases in sleep and appetite and libido, and that's when basically our mind decides that is an answer to our stress. So rather than saying that's unimportant, I'm going to shut that part of kind of our body down. It says, actually, eating is going to make me feel better. Sleeping is going to make me feel better. Sex is going to make me feel better. So we're going to pursue those things. We're going to go after those things. But different people are going to have different reactions in that regard in terms of what they value. The other sort of mental emotional symptoms that we start seeing are protective, or they're aimed to be protective. It's saying when we don't have enough energy, we start living in these chronic states of negative emotions that are telling us to listen to them, and telling us that you need to take care of yourself. So you have this constant, either constant worry that's telling you there's a problem and you need to deal with it, or there's constant exhaustion that's saying you don't have energy to deal with this, you need to rest. But then we also see some other kind of protective emotions pop up. We see a loss of motivation and avoidance, that we no longer have a desire to socialize, we no longer have a desire to exercise, we no longer have a desire to work, we no longer have a desire to do much of anything in life, because so much of our energy is going to something that our brain decides, well, you know, you don't want to do anything else. You don't want to use energy on anything else. You have to use all your energy for this thing that you're deeming as more important than yourself. We also see sort of this loss of pleasure and joy, feelings of numbness, feelings of emptiness. So at times our brain will disconnect, and sort of from life, similar to that lack of motivation. But it'll say, I'm not even really going to be present in this. I'm going to do these activities. I'll go through the motion. I'm going to be on autopilot, but I'm going to use minimal energy as possible. I'm going to be, my body's going to be doing the motions, but my mind's not going to be there because it needs to save energy. We also see an increase in irritability and frustration. Once again, it's trying to tell you to listen. It's trying to protect you. It's saying, other people are asking of things of you. Other people are asking for your time, for your attention, for your energy, for your money. And when you're already depleted, when you're already low, anger is going to come out as a way to defend yourself, to say, no, I'm not going to give you that. I can't give you that. But we start either with the source of our stress. We might, express our anger towards that, but we also might express anger towards, other people in our life that are asking for smaller things. And we feel like we just don't have anything to give them. And then lastly, as it continues, we see people go into feeling out of control, powerless, a sense of hopelessness, a sense of being in this stress state for so long, not seeing a way out, not feeling like they can choose anything different. They're never able to be happy. They're never able to relax. That they begin to, just drift towards despair, loss of kind of autonomy in their own life, and hopelessness in their future. So really significant effects from this, and these are sort of signs you can look for and are important to listen to if you're experiencing them in these kind of consistent ways. If these are things that you experience every day or for weeks on end, your body and your brain are telling you something important. The other thing I like to emphasize is that giving too much can be bad for the other people in your life. I just talked about a number of sort of emotions that start coming out in that, or a number of feelings. And those reduce the quality of care, and it damages the relationships that we're in. If we're exhausted mentally and physically, we can't give as much to work. We can't give as much to relationships. We can't give as much to the people we care about. If we're worried all the time, now other people have to take care of us, basically. We're worrying about other people so much, and stressing ourselves out so much. Now people become concerned for us, and they don't want us to worry, and they start hiding things from us and not telling us things, and so that we don't worry about them. Or we start avoiding the people we care about. We feel like we can't give them anything more. We feel like we can't give more than we're already giving. So we start not talking to them, not showing up to things, um, you know, kind of hiding from the world, and hiding from the people we care about. Or we'll disconnect. We're there, but we're not there. We're not present. We're not engaged. We're not really listening. We're not really feeling anything. We're there, but we're disconnected from the people. And irritability, start snapping on everybody, start reacting to people in ways that doesn't make sense to them, that feels hurtful to them, or hopelessness. And start feeling like nobody cares about us, start feeling like nobody wants us around, start feeling like no one appreciates our help. And that can cause damage in a relationship as well. So all these, when we give too much, we enter sort of these different emotional states, different physical states, that can cause a lot of damage to the relationships with people that we really love and care about, or the things that we might not love and care about but value, like work or school, things like that. So giving less, means that we can give more high quality care, and we can do that in a sort of more balanced and long-term sustainable way. And that's another sort of key point of this presentation, is we're aiming for sustainability in relationships, sustainability for yourself, but also sustainability in these relationships that you care about and you want to give so much to. What makes it hard to prioritize yourself? There's a number of different things. I'm going to go through some of them. Ones that I see kind of most often with my clients, and some of these, like this first page, is a lack of resources, that we're limited in what we have to give, and so we might choose to give more to somebody else from what we have than we give to ourselves. But most of what I'll talk about with these other ones are kind of the ways of thinking, or the ways of valuing things that lead us to this position. So lack of resources is very real, though. If we have limited time, limited money, limited energy, limited support from other people, there's only so much we can do. And maybe there are possibilities to sort of increase the resources that you have. Maybe it is possible to, free up time, or get more money, or bring other people in to help out. And those are important things to search for. But it's also going with what I was just talking about, understanding that self-care is an investment in yourself and those you care about. It's if a relationship is imbalanced and you are consistently giving, from what limited amount you have, it's still going to be a smaller amount, because you're doing it in an unsustainable way. You can give more to that person, even if it's not very much. You can give more to that person if you do it in a way that's sustainable and you can maintain over time. Now getting into some of the things our mind might tend to do, that sometimes gets us into trouble. One of those is relying on short-term solutions. We have these different sources of stress. We have different problems, whether that's in other people's lives or in our own life. And humans like to go to short-term solutions. Short-term solutions are great because they're fast acting. And they make these kind of feelings that we have go away quickly, and we need them. They're necessary. I'm not saying short term is bad. We need to be able to kind of turn off our brain sometimes, or numb our feelings, or have an escape from the stress or the pain for a moment, if we can't kind of do that long-term solution right away. But if we rely on them consistently and in a long-term way, we're never really addressing the root issue and finding a long-term solution that is actually going to, make our stress and kind of the root cause of the stress go away. So there's some different ways that when our feelings are rising and they're telling us that there's a need, there's some different ways that we kind of shift towards long-term solutions. One, we ignore these feelings. I'm going to get a little bit more into this in the next slide, but there's different times where we might invalidate our own feelings. We say we shouldn't feel them, or we might not even recognize that we're feeling them, or we're not listening to them and respond to them. And so our short-term solution basically is to do nothing about it, to ignore that and pretend that there's not a problem. Another thing people often do is numb their feelings. So different drugs are a big source of this, right? But it's, I feel anxious, I'll smoke some weed. I'm no longer anxious until it comes back tomorrow. I feel tired, I'll drink some coffee. I'm no longer tired until it comes back. So there's these different short-term answers that we can find, and it helps us get through the moment. Sometimes we're afraid of our feelings. Sometimes our feelings are too big, they're overwhelming, and we struggle to sit with them and listen to them and kind of organize our thoughts and deal with them. Or we're afraid that they'll cause more problems for us. If we allow ourselves to feel this way, if we express this feeling, it's going to cause more issues. It's going to cause conflict with other people. It's going to upset other people. It's going to be a burden on other people. And so sometimes we feel these feelings and we recognize them, but our short-term solution is to not show them, to not talk about them, to not ask for help, because that could cause a short-term problem for us. And then lastly, sometimes we channel our feelings in the wrong direction. So we may feel anger and we may go hit a punching bag, and that makes us feel better for a moment. But then whatever, originally made us feel angry may just keep popping back up, and we keep experiencing that stress. And we're not reaching that long-term solution once again. Okay, so minimizing our needs. These are some kind of paraphrases or quotes that I might hear from a lot of my clients. And every human does this in some way. But there's times where you might say, I shouldn't feel this way, right? I shouldn't be upset because somebody is suffering more than me. I shouldn't be tired because somebody is, working a lot harder than me. I shouldn't ask for help because that'll be a burden on somebody else. There's times where we feel these feelings, but we don't listen to them because we feel like they're not valid. They're not logical. We shouldn't be allowed to. Or I don't want to feel this way. Maybe we've been, taught that I don't want to cry because that's a sign of weakness. I don't want to be upset or angry because that might push this person away from me. So once again, we're kind of afraid of the consequences of our feelings, of what other people will think of them or judge them or how they'll react to them. So we kind of push those feelings down and don't listen to them. Or I can't feel this way. Maybe maybe that feels like an absolute. I can't be angry because that's going to lead to conflict. I can't be angry because, I don't have power in this situation, and somebody else is going to be angry back at me, and they're going to take their anger out on me. Um, or sometimes I can't be tired because people are relying on me. Um, I can't relax because people are relying on me. So sort of the guilt of that will stop us from taking care of ourselves, and resting. Um, and then lastly, sometimes we have a really sort of just negative association with certain feelings, and we really hate that feeling, or we hate when we feel that way, right? Um, I hate feeling angry at the person that I'm caretaking for, because that makes me feel bad about myself, makes me feel guilty, makes me feel like I don't care about them when I know that I do. I hate resting because it makes me feel lazy. Um, I hate worrying, because it reminds me of my mom. There's various things we have different associations with, and we push those feelings away because we have kind of this bad connotation of it. Bad news is you're going to feel your feelings. Your feelings are going to be there, and they're there because there is a need. Um, and so as much as you might want to, as much as you don't want to feel those feelings, or you feel like you shouldn't, or you feel like you can't, you're going to. And there's going to be a need connected to them, and so you have to figure out a way to listen to those and take care of yourself. um, it's also one thing people in therapy is it's important to question why we think these things. A lot of times we think these ways because of our past experience, or what we've been taught. um, I am warning you, if y'all ever decide to sign up for therapy with me, I'm the therapist that will say, let's talk about your parents. Um, oftentimes, our parents are caretakers when we're young, or society as a whole are is kind of these people that teaches us how to feel or how not to feel, what we should feel, what we shouldn't, right? And sometimes they get it wrong. Every individual has their own needs. Every individual has a different body and a brain and values and desires, and sometimes they're telling us, yeah, to ignore feelings that are actually healthy for us, or good for us. Um, Maybe because they think that is the best thing for us. Maybe it's because they don't care about us. But we can often get these messages of, you should not listen to your hunger because being skinny is more important. Um, you shouldn't get mad, because uh, that's not classy, or that's not professional, or we don't do that in this household. Or you shouldn't get mad because if you do, I'm going to beat you up. Um, or you shouldn't feel sad because I'm not going to care. I'm not going to do anything about it. Um, or, yeah, men shouldn't cry. Um, Men should only feel anger. Right. So there's all these different messages that we can get throughout our life, throughout from the people that are teaching us how to about the world, and about you know their experience, and we kind of internalize it and apply it to ourselves, and we may do that in a lot of ways that aren't really good for us, or healthy for us. So it's important to listen to your own brain, and as you're kind of denying your feelings or minimizing them, try and think, why am I doing this? Is this actually something that is good for me, or is this something that I just assumed was good for me? Or maybe it used to be good for you, right? It used to be protective. It used to be good not to feel anger because you would get hurt. But maybe now you're around different people, you're in a different environment, and maybe you have an ability to show anger and engage in conflict in a way that's actually safe and healthy. Um, all right, so how to kind of know your needs or listen for your needs. This pyramid here, some of y'all may recognize it, is attributed to a psychologist by the name of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And his idea, his theory is basically that everybody has, every human has a general structure of kind of our most important needs. The most important ones being at the bottom, these physiological needs of our need for food and water and shelter, our need to be healthy, and then kind of go up from there to our needs for safety and security and stability and a sense of control, a sense of predictability in life. And then we go to relationships and intimacy and some of those higher needs as well. But your body is going to be telling you when you're not listening to sort of your basic needs. It's gonna tell you when there's it's going to tell you when there's a kind of lacking in any of these needs. But it's going to stop you from focusing on any higher level needs if you're not meeting the basics. Right, so we'll see if you're hungry or you're tired, it's going to be hard to be in relationships and be social with people, right? We're going to be a little bit more irritable, we're going to be a little more snappy, we'll be hangry, we'll be grumpy when we first wake up. Your body's saying, no, sleep is more important, eating is more important, we don't care about socializing and relationships right now, right? Or if we don't feel safe in a relationship, if it doesn't feel predictable, if it doesn't feel stable, it's gonna be really hard to be intimate. It's gonna be really hard to relax and laugh with that person and enjoy their company, because our brain is saying that stability, that safety is more important, and we need to focus on that. So if you find yourself struggling with meeting some of these higher level needs, if you find yourself struggling to focus on work, maybe it's because you didn't listen to your need for sleep. Or maybe it's because you have a lot of stress going on in your life in other areas and life feels unstable and chaotic, and your brain wants to focus on that instead, and you should. There's going to be these different signals for different one that you need to listen to and kind of figure out which ones are priority. Next kind of trap we can fall into sometimes is taking on too much responsibility. So sometimes we take responsibility for things that really we shouldn't or we can't be responsible for. So one thing to do or question to ask is really to kind of take note of all the different responsibilities in your life. If you have responsibilities to work and responsibilities to your kids and your friends and your family and to yourself, and maybe other things in life, if you're pouring all your energy into one and you're saying, I am responsible for everything in related to work, you're probably going to end up neglecting these other areas that you're also responsible for. So sometimes we get in trouble when we're giving too much to one area, or just generally taking on too much responsibility. So we may need to shed some of that responsibility. We may need to kind of take some things off of our plate, or allow other people to take responsibility for things. Another question there is, does the recipient need what you are giving more than you need it, right? So sometimes we kind of magnify the needs of other people, and we say that, yeah, they need all this help, they can't do it on their own, they're not going to be happy without me, when a lot of times they might be okay. But maybe that person is telling you that they need you and they need you for these different things, and it feels like that statement is true. So then I go kind of back to the Maslow's pyramid, And I think it's good to look at, what are the needs that other people are asking for versus what are the needs that you're not taking care of yourself. Is somebody asking you to consistently lose sleep or not feed yourself, or not take care of yourself when you're sick, because they want companionship, or they want to feel good about how you look, or they want you to share in their accomplishments? They're asking you to meet their, higher level needs while their basic needs are met. And they're saying you shouldn't take care of your basic needs, when those are really the most important ones. So it's, I think looking at where there might be an imbalance in what people are asking of you and how important those needs actually are compared to the needs that you have yourself. And I will say this isn't an absolute rule, but I'm talking about sort of like consistent long-term patterns. So there are going to be times where you might be willing to lose sleep, to stay up and do something that somebody else wants to do and is excited about. Reasonable. But if you're doing that every night or, most nights and feeling sleep deprived and your body is shutting down, that may be a sign that somebody is asking too much of you, or you're expecting too much of yourself. Along with that, I think there's a question of, are you trying to make life perfect for somebody else? Are you trying to make sure that they never feel pain, that they never feel tired, that they never feel unhappy, that they never feel lonely, that they never feel bad about themselves, that you never tell them that you're annoyed with them, that you never tell them that you want time to yourself, you never tell them that you need to take care of yourself because you want to give them a perfect life, which sometimes for the people we love, that does feel really important. But it's, once again, it's usually unsustainable, and unachievable. And maybe those are some things that they could live with. Maybe the people in your life could live with, you know, a, a small amount of loneliness while you go and do something with your friends. Or they could live with, you know, a small amount of insecurity when you share with them, something that bothers you about them. Or maybe they can find a way to take care, to be hungry for a little bit while you're cooking and feeding yourself. And then lastly, are you taking on a responsibility that could belong to somebody else? So can that person do it themselves? Are they capable? Do they have the resources themselves? Why are you doing it for them if they're able to do it for themselves? Or if they're not able to do it, can you find somebody else who can help out? If they're not able to take care of themselves, you're not able to take care of them without, burning yourself out and exhausting yourself, then maybe somebody else can take that responsibility. Maybe another family member or a friend or a professional service. Maybe a therapist can talk to them about their problems instead of you. So those are some important questions to ask as you're figuring out what is actually your responsibility and what are you capable of. All right, managing your abilities. So this is another sort of trap we might fall in, is magnifying our abilities. Sorry, but basically thinking we can do more than we actually can. So I know we're running out of time. I will speed through the last bit a little bit and still have time for questions if people want to stick around. Well, the first one here, there's a difference between I can do this task and I can do this every day for the rest of my life. It's important to set expectations for yourself and set expectations for other people that are sustainable, right? You might be able to, stay up and, watch over, your kid when they're having nightmares when they're young, or they're not sleeping well, and lose some sleep for those first several years or whatever else. But are you going to do that for your whole life? No. At a certain point, there's going to have to be a change in expectations. Um, when you're beginning to date somebody, you might be able to, pretend like you're not bothered by anything they do, and they're perfect, and nothing annoys you, and nothing irritates you. But can you do that for a whole relationship and have it be sustainable? No. So you might be able to find ways that early on in relationships, and with work, you're setting realistic expectations for yourself and for others that are going to be sustainable. Another one I hear people talk about a lot is, I did this yesterday, or I did this before, so I should be able to do it today. Right? That's not taking into account ways that our ability fluctuates and changes. You're not going to be able to do the same things when you're sick as when you're healthy. You're not going to be able to do the same things when you're exhausted as when you're full of energy. So we need to recognize and have different expectations for ourselves as our resources change, as money changes. You can't keep giving the same amount to other people, when other things are coming and taking more of yourself, or you just don't have as much to give. So it's important to allow yourself to change kind of what you give to other people as your own needs change. Next one, I'll figure out a way to make it work. Sometimes we do figure out a way to make it work, but once again, if you don't have a plan, if you're not really setting, like, don't have a solid idea for how you're going to sustain this and how you're going to keep making things happen, there's a high risk that things aren't going to work out and be sustainable. Last two here, I don't want to help. It will be easier or better if I do it myself. Some people take a lot of pride in their ability, and they feel that things should be done a certain way, or it would just be faster or quicker to do it a certain way. And so they don't ask for help, or they don't allow other people to help them. That's how you end up, doing the dishes for the rest of your life, because you don't like how your partner organizes the dishwasher. Or you're constantly, you have an intern at work, and but you don't trust them that they're going to do as good a job or as quick a job, and so they never learn, they never take a load off your plate, and you're just doing, have this imbalance that's sustained. So it's important to try and allow the people in our lives to do things themselves, and maybe teach them, if you think that there's a better or easier way to do it. Lastly, I don't want help, I can do this on my own. So similar, this sort of denial of help, but this it kind of ties in with this idea that asking for help is weak, or that it's going to be a burden on other people. And once again, it's maybe that is something you were taught. Maybe that's something that society has taught us. Maybe that's something people in your life taught you, that they didn't have energy, they didn't have money, they didn't have resources, time to help you, to give you the things you wanted, to support you. So you learned that you had to do it all on your own. But if you have people in your life now that want to and are willing and have the resources to help you, please let them. They're able to do it. They're offering. They want to. They can. And so it's actually going to be, sort of, you're going to be stronger if you allow that help, and still have, energy for yourself. All right, kind of wrapping up here. One thing you can think about sort of is to try and quantify this, of what are your needs? What are you responsible for? How much energy do you actually have? How much emotional energy, physical energy, social energy, mental energy do you actually have? Try and take note of when that energy is being depleted and what's depleting it. Try and take note how you feel, when you don't get as much sleep, or when you're sick, or, when certain people ask certain things of you, or when you ask certain things of yourself. Notice that that drop in energy. Notice the feelings and that your body and brain are telling you. As you can notice that and you kind of figure out patterns, you can understand what your limitations are. You can understand, how you can sort of live and operate in a sustainable way. Um, and there might be, certain boundaries you're able to set with that. Right? I don't socialize or do anything really on a Sunday evening because I've learned over time, if I do that, I'm not really going to prep for my week. I'm going to feel anxious. I'm going to feel tired. It's going to have a big impact on my mental health. That's a boundary that I set for myself. Or I might not, I need to make sure that I exercise 2 to 3 times a week. Because if I don't, I'm aware, I've noticed the patterns. That's going to have a big impact on my mental health. So even when other people are asking for my time, say, no, I have to go to the gym. And I know that, my friends are, even if I'm saying no to them, they're going to benefit from it in the long run because they're going to get a better version of myself consistently. All right, last thought to leave y'all with, sort of the caregiver's golden rule. If you're a caregiver, if you're someone who already gives a lot, you already automatically give to others how you would like, to be treated yourself. So the caregiver's rule has to be do unto yourself as you would do unto others. All the, the things that you want for other people, what you want to give to other people, what you feel responsible to for other people, try and do that for yourself. I'm going to sort of skip over this conclusion, sort of just a collection of what we talked about before. Couple quick resources here. This is my plug for Avance and for therapy in general. Therapy is a lot of this process is helping people figure out what they need and helping figure out how they can, understand why they're not getting that and help them figure out how they can get it. And so if you're interested in that, Avance has individual therapy, also therapy groups, specialized therapy is family or couples counseling, or other sort of specialty areas of therapy if you're interested. It's a QR code that you can go and look at. You can request a specific therapist or you can provide preferences. You'd be assigned one. We offer telehealth and in-person services across North Carolina, also psychiatric services. If you want to look outside of Avance, highly recommend Psychology Today. It's a website that most therapists basically will put their profile on, and you can filter by all sorts of different criteria, your type of insurance, what type of sort of help you're looking for, the therapist specialty, their gender or sex or race, and they'll filter to profiles that you can look at. You can see a picture of somebody, you can read about them and have a way to contact them. And then if you are interested in some of these other resources down here that might be a little bit harder to find, or isn't kind of standard therapy, feel free to reach out to me and ask, and I'm happy to provide some options on that. All right, so that is it for me. I appreciate y'all taking the time. I know it basically filled up the whole hour, but I'm happy to stick around if there are any questions that people have. Guess I'll check in with Chat and Lindsay to see what is up.
Yeah, you actually have 2 questions, Guy. And if you can't see them, I'm happy to read them to you.
I do. I see 3 actually. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so we have my teenage kids are on social media. I notice changes in their behavior and personality. What tips do you have to improve self-care routines that will support their well-being? This is I mean, teenagers are always complicated. I think a big emphasis that I want to sort of get across with this presentation is trying to understand the why behind these behaviors. If there are behaviors, if they're experiencing feelings, if they're showing behaviors that don't really seem healthy, there's a why behind it, and it might be that they, they may be experiencing a lot of feelings, as many do in the teenage years, and they don't know healthy ways to deal with it. But it's hard for me to prescribe a self-care routine when we don't know exactly what they're trying to, what feeling they're trying to address. So I would encourage trying to talk to them about it, trying to understand what they get out of going on social media, or what they get out of acting in certain ways. What is it, how does it make them feel better? Why are they interested in it? And that might help understand, sort of what that root cause might be. Second one I see as a chronic people pleaser. What are phrases you can use to set firm boundaries when you're not used to setting or sticking to them? Once again, I'm sorry, I'm always this way. I will tend to give some vague, indirect answers. My main answer for everybody is to go to therapy. I'm in therapy myself, and I think it's very helpful for everybody. It's difficult to change. It's difficult to think in a different way than you've always thought. Even if you kind of know logically that something is different, it's really hard to change that feeling and change our behavior in a really significant way. So therapy is really useful for when you have these chronic patterns of feeling, or of communicating or behaving, to I guess really sort of dig to the root of that, and figure out a way to make these things easier for you. So I think you can know these phrases, but you have to figure out exactly which ones are kind of comfortable for you to say, and figure out why it's so uncomfortable for you to set those boundaries. I think talking about sort of how that's going to be helpful to you to the other person, and then also sort of how it's going to be helpful to them as well. If you're, it's important to, when we want to make other people happy, it's important to talk to them about, tell them that we want to make them happy, but also tell them how much it's costing us to do that. And if they care about us, then hopefully they'll listen and help us out with that. All right, and then the last question is just about having the slides emailed. So I believe these will be posted somewhere. Lindsay will have to confirm that for me, but I believe the slides will be shared. Is that correct?
Everybody that has participated in the webinar will receive an email, and it will include the webinar as well as a transcript, and you can also find it on our website. I'll make sure to include that on that question as well.
Thank you. And I'll do this one last question, and then I think we'll have to call it. Seeing some of the characteristics I noted in married young adult, how do you suggest that we approach our adult child in a positive way? That's a tricky one. I guess it depends, how willing they are to talk about it, or how much they're acknowledging it themselves. I think that the fact that you care about them and you're there for them. And, if they are giving a lot to other things in their life, if you can be somebody that does give to them, and helps kind of refill their cup, that can be really important, whether that's just giving them emotional support or um, uh, taking things off their plate or making it known that they can ask for help. That can be really important. Um, Another thing you can do is I guess sort of try and talk about how observing them makes you feel. Um, you know, Not that they are doing anything wrong. We try and avoid these you statements of "you're worrying me," "you're making bad decisions," "you're giving too much of yourself," and focus on your own experience, your own feelings. I'm worried. I watch you do this, and it concerns me. I might be wrong, but I love you, and I worry about you, and um, if uh, sort of just sharing that experience, and that can open somebody up a little bit to be a little less defensive. It doesn't feel as so much of an attack, and more they have an opportunity to explain, and kind of respond to your feelings. All right. So that will be time. I hope everybody got something out of that. I appreciate everybody for coming. And like I said, feel free to reach out to Avance or to me if we can be of help in any other way. Hope you all have a great rest of your night.